Okay, I'm going to begin with you guys. Good morning. Um, Happy Easter. Glad to see you are all up and at it. Um, I have maybe one or two little announcements here, and and then maybe I can talk a little bit about each of your sculptures with you, and we'll go from there. Okay, so. I think the first thing is to maybe just remind us that today is the benchmark day for you to upload the finals of your totem. And some of you have done a version of that. I think mostly on the um, the progress or the process ones, the draft version, which is fine. I think that's what I would do if I were in your situation. And then hopefully I can comment on those either there on the site, or if you have some specific questions that I can answer for you here this morning before you turn in your final version. I want to remind us that today is a benchmark day. It's not a hard and fast deadline. And so if I were in your position, I'd take advantage of that. Meaning that you want to try and be as close to it and sending something in today that you can. But on the other hand, since it's a soft deadline, that getting any maybe final comments, thoughts from me that you can question me, push me to try to get more specific if you need before submitting those. That's fine. But with that deadline, then I guess on Wednesday, I will begin talking about the next assignment, the final assignment. I was hesitating there because wondering if I should wait until a week from today, but I think on Wednesday I will begin talking about the next one. Okay, so just in general, first of all, I think those of you that I have seen something from, I like the directions that you're each going. And again, this is a general comment. I think that this idea of sculpture, but any kind of design and art, we're constantly working back and forth between this idea of form and content. So, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to take this time to mention it a little bit more because maybe it's a little bit for us to be thinking about again with our final assignment as we bring it all together. But I think the idea or the relationship between form and content is perhaps the most important thing of all. It's why we choose a particular material, because it can help us say something. It's not just arbitrary. I've picked a material, a process, tools, a way of putting together, chosen color, chosen shapes, chosen all of those things about the look. I've made those choices because those choices will more specifically help communicate a particular idea about the content, or I could say the message, or I could say the symbolism. I've used the term story here on this assignment a little bit. So the storytelling aspect of it, the message, the symbolism, that's the content. I'm trying to say something about some topic, or I'm trying to reference some ideas. That's all content. I'm not saying anything brand new to you here. What I am trying to do is emphasize this connection that happens when we're creating something in a particular discipline. So in this case, we're in an art discipline where the result is visual. The result is a thing that usually doesn't exist anywhere else. We might try to imitate something, that exists elsewhere. But an art piece, we're creating something that doesn't exist elsewhere. Your piece that you create is the only one of its kind in the world. Kind of cool, right? It's the only thing that's like that in the world. And so you as the artist, as the sculptor, have to make some choices about how that thing looks. You also make some choices about what that thing might say. And sometimes, you know, like art majors, for example, but anybody that's making it might say, well, why do I have to say something? Why can't I just make something that I think looks cool? And the answer to that is, well, you can. But the result is it's still going to say something. So even if your intent is to just make something cool looking, the result is the actuality of the reality of it is that it is going to say something to somebody else that looks at it. So it's it makes sense that, well, I just maybe want to have fun making something, or I'm just going to play around with, that's a phrase I hear a lot too, I'm playing around with this stuff. And that's okay, it's part of the process. But what we do want to do at some point in that process is be consciously aware of what it might be saying. What is the message that it could imply? What is the feeling that it might impart? You know, that is the result of it. And so as artists mature, they more consciously try to think about what that message might be early on in the process. They never, I don't, well, I couldn't say that. But I think that the idea when we're exploring is that we're more likely to, well, I'm going to see what these materials do, or I'm going to see what this process does, and go with there. And I think that's a very legitimate kind of thing. I think it's a very important kind of it's part of our growth. You know, the majority of you guys in this class aren't necessarily art majors, but we learn about all sorts of things when we try something new, and that's a major aspect of how we grow, how we learn, how we just understand the things around us. We are making something in reaction to the materials that we have, in reaction to the way we think, in reaction to our confidence, our abilities, those kind of things. And all of this relates back again to this idea of form and content. So I just wanted to give us a little bit of that again here this morning. I guess I should say that those comments are meant not to be a criticism of anything that you've done or not done. It's just simply part of what we do when we make a visual thing. Whether we call that thing a sculpture, or whether we call that the arrangement of our furniture in our room, where the decision of what clothing we wear, you know, any of that, we're making decisions about something that in the end is visual. And whether or not we're thinking about the message that it might imply, it does communicate some kind of message. Okay, so that's a little bit. And so as it relates to perhaps the final stages of the Totem project, I want you to look at, even if you right now you feel like, well, I'm basically done, I think I'm done. I want you to kind of self-critique it. I want you to look at it, and look at it both from separately first as a form, and that relates back to all the discussions we've had about the sculptural idea. So I'm not going to repeat all those things again right now. What I haven't talked about as much in the past is the content side, and that's why I emphasize that a little bit more this morning again. I want you to look at your totem just as form and kind of self-critique it. Does it look interesting from all sides? Does it occupy as well as surround space? Does it do those kinds of things as a form? Now, because it's a totem and a big piece, then the idea of stability, and we could say strength, I suppose, but stability I think is a more accurate term, is that there? When the cat walks by and its tail hits it, is it going to fall over, or is it going to stay up? You know, is it going to withstand an earthquake, or maybe not? But is it going to withstand maybe a breeze if it's out in the yard? So you're looking at it both in terms of the way it occupies space as the sculptural idea, but also its stability is something that we have not talked about relating to form in the past. The other thing then is I want you to separately critique it, self-critique it, in terms of the message that it might imply, or what do you think it communicates to other people when they see it. And then finally, I want you to, again, self-critique it and see how those two things come together. Does the form influence the message, the content? Is the content enhanced by the form? You know, how does that relationship work? Okay? And so when you do send up or submit your final images, I also want you to submit, I'm going to call it a paper. I don't want to scare us off by this because it's going to sound like I'm lumping a bunch of additional work on you. This paper is basically your thoughts about this form and content and the relationship between the two of them, about your self-critique of the project. And its length might be just a single page if we were typing it out. I'm not concerned about, I don't know, the formality of it. It can be written very informally. I'm not giving you any more direction in terms of its structure. It's just, it's a very informal thing. It's a reflective thing. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay? And if that isn't clear, please ask me when to talk more about it if you need. But submit that along with the images for the final version. Let's see, is there anything else general I could say here? I guess yes. A general thing I would say is there's a really nice variety of pieces that you guys have done. There's a nice variety of materials that you've worked with the process that you've done, and the kind of message that you're trying to tackle and say something about. So I'm really happy with that. You should be as well. I mean, we're in an unusual situation, you know, where you are trying to deal with all sorts of things on a daily basis in a weird way. And so here you're also trying to go to school and complete something outside your major in most cases online. It's a bizarro thing. It is for all of us. And I appreciate your efforts with it. I appreciate all of that. In spite of those obstacles, I am impressed with the variety and the effort that you guys have made in trying to do this. So I think I'm going to stop there with my general comments. And so I'd like to know what your thoughts are. If you, questions about how to totally finish it, perhaps. There might be a structural thing that you're struggling with to hold it all together in a final way. There, anything like that. So please go ahead, and I'd like to hear from you.
Is there a due date for this?
Today was our benchmark due date, yes. And again, that's a kind of a soft deadline. It's a benchmark. So if you want to, and it's there so that we have time to work on our final project. But the absolute deadlines for both this project as all our projects is at finals week at the end of the semester. I think it's to your advantage to try and have your final in today or close to today,
Mhm.
but that's a benchmark.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have any, Jason, do you have any questions or comments about finishing yours up?
No, not right now. I don't think I have enough progress to like actually have any questions, but I have a really good idea on what I want to do.
Okay,
So,
so that's what I was, yeah. So I thought you might see that not being further along could be because you're unclear on something or you don't know what materials to work with or something. So what are the materials you're thinking of, or what is the story you want to tell?
um, well, I kind of want to use your idea of the something to do with the environment and how we're kind of we've gone to a point of industrialization where we have too much waste like piling up in the world. So I have a lot of bottles and cans,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking of like color coordinating them
Say that one more
and
time.
color coding.
Oh, color
The
coding, color coding.
Yeah,
Oh, nice. Okay.
and then use the colors of each like bottle or can to like either like build some kind of like organism. I
Okay.
notice I have a lot of green bottles. So if I put all the green bottles together, I'm thinking of like making like algae or something.
Okay.
And I don't know, just show some like just try to make like a creature of some sort. But yeah.
Okay. So I want to. I don't remember if I mentioned this to you or not, but you should check out the sculptures at the it's the National Zoo in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
And there are some large sculptures there that are made from things that were pulled out of the ocean, and they're pretty. So you'll have a big sculpture of a seal or a shark or something. So the connection of the materials coming from the ocean, it's an environmental thing in saying that this is the junk we throw in the ocean,
Mhm.
and how it affects the life that is living in the ocean by representing those different creatures. So that's something that ends up looking pretty realistic, made out of junk. So that's one direction. The other direction would be, well, I don't know if I can make a total. I would have trouble making, I don't know, an accurate looking shark, even if I wasn't doing it with found objects. So that seems difficult to me. And
I
so with that idea, then maybe you interpret it on a different kind of level. And I so one level would be I create a DNA chain,
Mhm.
something like that. Um, or on the other hand, I create it on a very abstract level that is uh, a brand new form. It's kind of like what you did with your wood sculpture was a very cool, brand new wood abstract sculpture. And you could still apply that kind of thinking here, where the sculptural idea. I occupy space, I surround space. Maybe even you give yourself the goal it has to have a hole in it. So now it's an organic thing made from man-made objects. Okay.
Mhm.
Clarissa, I think you had a comment there.
yeah. So I didn't bring this up earlier, and I probably should have, but I went to UC Riverside, and
Yeah.
they have an entire house that is covered in sculptures, all made of bottles and trash. And I
Mm.
actually have a really clear picture of it. I don't know if this is gonna show up,
Oh,
but
hang on. Oh, do you have it on your computer?
like right here.
Because if you do, you could share your screen.
Oh no, I don't have it on my computer. I just have it on my phone.
Okay, those are excellent at UC Riverside, right?
Yeah, so basically the whole thing is encapsulated in something to keep it all together. So they used like the chicken wire to make one figure. Some places do different stuff, but that'd be really good when the structure gets difficult, because I know that structure for mine was really hard to get it tall enough. So that's just an idea how to keep it like really tall.
Together. Great, excellent suggestion. Yeah. Had you seen them at Riverside, or you just were kind of Googling?
Oh no, that's my photo. Yeah, I took that. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you were there. You were there, and or you saw them there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Jason, does that help maybe a little bit? Okay. Somebody else, tell me about where you're at. What's your progress, Stephen?
Okay, let me try to share my screen.
Okay.
All right, can you see it, my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, it's kind of blurry.
And you were working off Christo's wrapped object.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why it's so blurry. Okay, I guess it's like
That one's clear. Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering what are your thoughts on I was thinking of either putting a second layer of the aluminum foil and then doing like a peeling effect,
Okay.
or do you think I should poke holes like where the milk cartons like where they like crisscross at?
Yeah. I think both of those ideas are good ones. You just should try them out and see.
Right.
I don't remember if I mentioned on the aluminum foil a technique that I started doing that I like. If you like the peeling away thing, you absolutely can put on several layers and then peel or tear away to reveal things that are underneath. Absolutely, you can do that. You can also do a version of it with paint, and it works pretty well on aluminum foil, where you either spray or just paint with a brush, paint on it, let it dry, put another coat on it, let it dry. And so you build up layers of paint, and then use something like a cleaning pad, like a Scotch Brite or a steel wool, or even light sandpaper, and just lightly sand away and pay attention. And the purpose there of that sanding process is not to take it all away, but to take away different amounts of the layers that you've built up. Something did you ever do in grade school something that was, you did crayon on a piece of paper and then put ink on it and then you scratch through it? Did you ever do that?
I don't recall doing
Doesn't
that.
sound, okay. If you had, then that might give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. But my other comment though is going to be this. Don't restrict wrapping to just one box at a time.
Okay.
So for example, right now you have string around that top one, it looks like. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's like wiring.
Or wire, okay. And I don't know if I see anything on the green one yet. And
Yeah, I
then,
haven't put anything on the middle one.
okay, and then aluminum foil on the bottom, it looks like maybe paper. And
Yeah, some paper.
okay, so what I'm going to suggest here is do some of this that goes over the whole piece.
Okay.
It would be similar to, our Nevelson box one, where we had all these different boxes and then we spray painted it all black to unify.
Yeah.
So in this case, you might have one thing. I'm just going to pick the aluminum foil as an example, and do aluminum foil that goes over everything, connecting between it, and then removing some, like you were talking about, or doing other things over, but don't restrict it to just the segments.
Okay.
You want to unify this, and one would be, well, let's spray paint it all one color. That would be a unifying thing. Even, in fact, you could do that right now with the different textures on them right now, and different techniques of whether it's wire, aluminum foil, or string. And then we spray paint the whole thing one color. So we have different texture on each one, but that's the variety. And then the unifying idea would be color in that example. Another version would be, I take any one of these wrapping techniques that you've done and do the whole stack, and then reveal other little things in there, or perhaps do something else over the top of that.
Okay.
So I'm talking about unifying the whole stack.
Hmm.
Okay, does that help a little bit? Or
Yeah, I think I have this like netting right here.
oh, cool.
So do you think I could put this, like, I guess like put this over like, or I guess I could drape it over the entire sculpture.
There you go. It's
Do you think
something like
that
that.
would,
Yes,
okay,
it's something like that. So you just want to unify the whole thing as a form.
right.
You have chapters,
Mm-hmm.
right? But right now they are a little bit too separate. So we need to unify them somehow. I like the idea of
Okay.
what I just said. They're like a book, like chapters.
Yeah.
You know? So we need to find a way to unify them in some way. So color would be one. One thing that drapes over the entire thing would be a different one. I know that there are countless other ways too, but we're talking about unifying the stack here a little bit more. Well, I'll tell you a unifying thing that you have right now is that they're all boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's this back and forth between repetition and variation. So yes, you have some repetition. We have more variety in there right now. So we need to unify it a little bit more by either one of the ways that we just talked about, or perhaps you discover something else. I do like the top part there that adds a variety. It's like a crown almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You've got some
Okay.
great things that you're working with here.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Let's see. I don't know if you also the chat. Clarissa's got a nice comment in there. The net is a good idea. Yeah. Somebody else.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for mine, I'm doing mine out of cardboard boxes.
Right.
I'm not all the way finished yet, but I think my concern turned into how am I going to get access to paint it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, and I want to see if you had any ideas of what I can do.
Certainly. Well, I'm not going to encourage you guys to go out to any stores. So if you don't have any paint right there, then we're going to think about some other way that we might add color. And one is paper. You might, if you had a lot of one color of paper and you essentially collaged it on there. And you can make you could think of it like paper mache. So I make a water and glue or water and flour mixture, and I attach this paper to the form in that way. So it's all paper mache. Another way, though, if we stay with paint, is, well, can we make some paint? And we can. So we might take some dirt and essentially make mud and paint that mud mixture on there. So that mud mixture might be a red mud or a black mud, or a tan mud. So that kind of thing can act as a natural kind of paint. We might also, if it's rocks, and so I take the rocks and I take a hammer and pound it up until it's powder. And again, I add a little bit of water to it and make a natural kind of paint. So we can do that too without having to go buy paint. Let's see, another, I think the idea here, though, that you're after is a unifying color. And so the unifying color could be if it's all corrugated cardboard and brown. The difference would be is if in some places we see printing on it from the original box or something like there. And if that's not helping the overall message, then of course that's a distracting thing. So I think the unifying color idea does make sense to me. And so maybe I'm going to call it making your own paint is a possibility. Let's say if it's white, we could even make a kind of a paste paint from a flour, water kind of idea that we can paint on. And then as a last resort, if you wear your mask and gloves, you can go to Home Depot and you stand in line, and you could get in there and just get paint and get out of there. But absolutely wear a mask and your gloves. Okay. So what does that sound like to you here?
I have some options. I'm gonna see because when I go to the store, like the paint, well, not Home Depot, but like Walmart, Target, they're most likely gone. So I could definitely try and look in Home Depot to see if they have some paint. I'm not afraid to go out in the stores, so I'll
Yeah.
go try today and see if they have some paint there.
Okay. Okay. How about somebody else?
Sure, I have some questions. Let
Yeah.
me share my screen real quick. All right, so here's my sculpture so far. Pretty much what it is 2 wheels, some like spare metal I found in the garage from my dad's refrigeration stuff. And it's just like a 20-pound wheel standing on, kind of balancing on top of it. It's actually surprisingly stable.
Mm-hmm.
I have some other car parts, but they're all kind of smaller, like brake pads. I think I have fuel injectors there. I have exhaust hangers and brake rotors and all that other stuff, but I'm just not really sure how I'd incorporate those since they're smaller and there's not too much real estate on this.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm impressed with this. You're dealing with some big, heavy kinds of things, and you've done a nice job stabilizing it, like you said. So what I'm looking at here, and to hopefully give you some direction with what other parts you might use, is, well, okay, what's repeated right now? And if we look at it, it's a circle. So the little stool that everything's sitting on, those are round legs. They're round cross spindles. The tires, of course, are round. It looks like this. I can't tell this for sure. Are the spindles? No, they're not round. So are they? What are those vertical pieces?
My dad works for refrigeration, so or not in refrigeration, but like kitchen equipment. So he'll make like shelves and all this stuff. So I'm not sure what it's supposed to be for, but they're kind of like stainless steel L brackets.
Oh, okay, got it. So they're L-shaped. Okay.
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
see how in the bottom wheel there's kind of like triangles.
I see that now.
Yeah, so just kind of stuck them in there.
Yeah. How are they? Are they just sitting on the stool, or are they attached to the stool?
They're not attached to the stool. They're sitting within the triangles, and they're just kind of balancing there. Like, it's a little sketchy because it's really heavy.
Yeah.
So it might fall, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna fall. You know?
It does seem like it's going to fall.
No, it doesn't seem like it's gonna fall.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Again, I'm impressed with that. That's excellent. So I have a couple thoughts for you here. One, I don't know if these are tires that you would otherwise be able to still put on a vehicle or not, but you should look up tire sculpture. So tires can be cut into and then folded out.
Okay.
Have you seen anything like that?
The bottom one is for my Jeep. It's a flat tire. I took it out of my car because it's useless. But the top one's actually out of my dad's old Porsche, so I can't do that because it's still like a spare tire that he could use.
Yeah, yeah. So let's not alter that one. But the bottom one, well, first of all, you should take a look out there because there's some pretty ingenious things that get made out of tires. You know, a practical thing, you've probably seen these occasionally where somebody has made it into a swing, like a tree swing. There are those. There are other ones that there's some like playground equipment, like they'll turn them into a horse. It's one tire that's flipped out around itself after it's cut, and it becomes this little horse. It's amazing. But all sorts of things. My goal here is not to tell you, oh, I think you should make a horse or something out of it. What I'm saying is you can cut into the tire and fold that out, and it will do other things. You know, if you wanted to. So that's one suggestion that you could try. Another is that you could have, do you have any more tires?
I might have to look for them. I might have to take them out of other cars, but I could possibly get one more.
Possibly one more. So okay. So where I'm going for there is if you can create a repetition with variation. So let's say that I think right now you have the good tire on top. And yeah, so let's say the bottom tire is the most altered, and then you have another tire that's only slightly, you know, a little less altered. All the way up, it's growing into a round tire, you know, that goes up this central spindle. So that's again a different kind of direction. It's a possibility. But let's go back here to what I was going to say originally. When I said there's the strongest, at least the spindles aren't round, but still the strongest repetition here is round. And so maybe looking at the other car parts you have that are also round. And so then it's a matter of, well, how can I attach these to this, and where would I do this, and all that. So if there are other round pieces that have holes in them that could maybe fit around at least just one of the spindles, the L bracket, angle iron, then that's a possibility. I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head here because I'm not really myself. I'm not really excited about any of those, you know. But I'm trying to think of, well, okay, what could we do here? And the other thing that I like about it, though, in spite of, well, we were talking about what other things we could add to it or change to it. One of the things I think is the strength of it is its simplicity. And so when things have simplicity, this idea of whatever's unifying or repeated or unifying is important. So maybe it's back to some of our earlier comments of it needs a unifying color.
Okay.
Maybe it's all black. Maybe it's
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I did have one idea where I have like the brake pads, like the smaller things, and I could maybe throw in some wrenches and stuff. What I was thinking of doing there is maybe tying those both on strings and kind of dangling them over the top tire, so you'd have two wrenches on one side, and then 90 degrees from those you'd have two brake pads kind of hanging at like various lengths.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so you should try that. I have to say that as you're doing that, you're adding more variety. So if we're going, you know, back and forth between unifying and variety, well, the more variety I throw in there, then I need to unify all of this. And the way that we've at least done or talked about the most is a single color. Make that happen. On the other hand, let's say we make it like a, I don't know, a Ferris wheel circus kind of thing where everything is a different color. And so now it's more of a, like a toy almost, or an amusement park ride, or some, you know, going that direction. So now it's kind of like, okay, if with variety, then we're going to push variety to the max. And it's going to look really fun and almost almost toy-like, you know? So I don't know what the toy is, but it's going to look toy-like,
Okay.
you know? So you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I got you.
So the
If I-
unified single color is like a sophisticated, formal kind of thing. And the variety, over-the-top variety, is going to have a fun comic kind of feel. And so
Okay.
maybe my suggestion for you there to look up is it's almost an animation feel, is to look up, you know the movie Beetlejuice?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I like the answer, of course. Yeah, so that kind of thing, you know, that also has an underlying kind of vibe to it. But you could also look at, what is I going to think there? The design style Memphis. So Memphis, like the town Memphis, the city Memphis, had that style had nothing to do with the city called that we know as Memphis, Tennessee. But the design movement was called Memphis, and the things that were created in that in the 80s, it was a very postmodern style that was very animated looking, pattern, color. So there's that reference as well.
Okay. I
Okay.
think if I was to change a color of something, I'd do the stool, maybe wrap it in like aluminum foil or something, so it'd match like the rims of the tires and the rods and everything, and the hubcap. But like I'd try to get it like a smooth finish, so it doesn't look like tin foil, you know.
Uh-huh.
But I do like the idea of kind of matching colors and stuff.
Okay, so going that route. All
Yeah.
right. So then I would look at, do you see that there are four legs on the stool, and there are three spindles between the tires? Maybe it's going one more spire at the very top.
Okay, the only problem with that is I only have access to 3 L brackets.
But maybe it's something else. I mean, you've got
Okay.
on wood, these L brackets, maybe there's a single stick in the top middle, you know,
Okay.
like a spire.
I
But
got
then I would turn see the way the four legs are, it's going to go 4 to 3. So turn it so that that 4 becomes 3 in a more,
natural way. I
yeah,
got
in a natural way. Very good. Yes.
Sweet. Thank you.
Somebody else? Okay, I'm going to call on you guys and put you on the spot then. Brittany, can you update us here?
So, because I'm working with books and I'm doing like book covers, it's probably like I'm probably not gonna be able to like send any like updated like photos or anything because the books are temporary and like everything's temporary and I have to make the book covers and then just build it all at once in one day. But I've been like thinking about, and I have started some book covers because I have a lot of construction paper.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm thinking, so I forgot what direction I talked about last class, but my new development is doing like a sculpture based on Trump's presidency
Okay.
and kind of make like the top of the sculpture. I want to make it like quarantine. Like, I was thinking like having a book that says like our true heroes and then it's like healthcare workers and like grocery workers and stuff, and then have like a top book barely balancing on that, and that being like Trump's like plan. And then I have like a bunch of cover ideas, like let me on my notes page. Oh, like Donald Trump Book of Lies, the Mueller report, How to Get Away with Murder, The Rise of Trump, You're Fired, Quid Pro Quo, China, 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 Coming Out of Hiding, White Nationalist version, like just stuff like that. And then I also have a, excuse my language, I have a fuck Trump flag. And so I'm going to hang that in the back, and it'd be like the backdrop where I take the photo, like the final photo. But I kind of wanted to go that direction because for me, it was easier to think of book covers because there's so much that bothers me about his presidency. And then also, like, there's a lot that he's done to create quarantine a little harder on everyone. So I thought that would be like a good like way to do the books. And yeah, so
I
it's a
love.
little controversial, but it's
Oh,
just
I love it.
okay.
I think that one of the things that art has the ability to do is comment on controversial subjects and can cause discussion. So I would doubt that everybody has the same opinion about anything. And so when we have a person, a place, a thing that perhaps because of something that has occurred or some things that have occurred, they become in and of themselves a controversial subject. And so when we make comment on that, again, we continue the discussion, the dialogue, and that is, when we're talking about a public figure, that is important. It's one, and again, it's one of the things that art has the power to do. Books have the power to do that. Television, movies, entertainment have the power to give us other opinions about those things. So I'm really happy to see you going in a direction that tries to tackle a controversial person. You also brought up the idea of the site where you want this to be seen. So, and how that environment influences the message. I haven't been talking about that lately, and that's my fault. I need to. So thanks for bringing that one up. And for all of us, it's not just the picture of your sculpture that I want to see in the end. I want to see that sculpture in a specific site. So how that site and the piece relate. That is a part of this assignment. So thanks, Brittany, for reminding me to bring that one back up again. Okay, so the way that you described the book at the top, you want to try a couple variations there, because it could imply a completely different direction than the way you described your intention. It could, so just as an example, it could be taken to mean that the top book is the crown. It's the it's the best of all of the what's stacking up to be that. I don't think that was your implied message. So try a couple different things of how that is.
So maybe I could like reverse it then and like have everything balancing on like one specific book. And then it'd be like, because you were talking about like the structural integrity of the sculpture.
Yes.
I think mine will really play off of being very fragile and not being able to withstand wind or like a cat walking by. Like it's going to be very fragile and very temporary in my mind. So I think that plays well into what I'm trying to do.
Very good. I think that's an interesting direction. And again, I want to repeat, try a couple different variations, but I have to say that variation of it sounds more promising. But I don't know this. So I think we have these theses, we have an idea. So then we try it out and see what the result of that is. That's where the form and content, that relationship is what ultimately will work. So we have some ideas of how that relationship is going to work, but it may not be, in fact, what we intend when we get close to the end. So play around with that. I like the direction. I like the content idea behind it. Let me say one thing about the paper, because it does have to do with this form and how the form influences the content, the message. So if the, I like that, and Clarissa has a nice comment in there. Did you say construction paper? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I have a ton of like construction paper to create like the book covers because I have a bunch of like random books, but I don't have like one.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking about this. So if they're all construction paper, they might be different colors and stuff, but they're all construction paper. That's a unifying idea. Construction paper by itself remember early on we talked about intrinsic value of different materials, like I think we were talking about stone at that point, way back early in the semester, where we might pick, here's a better example. So marriage engagement rings, a diamond. It's a diamond. It's not a, I don't know, it's not sandstone. Because the rock itself, the mineral itself, carries some intrinsic value about it because of some of its qualities. So if we apply this now to the paper choice, that we typically don't see book covers out there on the shelves out of construction paper because the paper itself is a cheaper paper. It fades, that kind of thing. So can we play off that aspect as well? It's a unifying idea. So that on that side is a plus. Can we play off maybe the titles with the choice of paper? If you now went in this direction of it's a fragile balance, is that, I'm not saying that very clearly, so I don't know. What do you think, Brittany?
No, I understand what you're saying. With the construction paper, it kind of like implies that he's not like traditional. Like he's not the traditional book cover. He's cheaper. He's a cheaper version of a politician. Like
that's the thinking. Think metaphorically. Think symbolically there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. Good. Let's see. Have I talked with the rest of you?
I have mine to show.
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay. So I'm on here on my phone and my laptop, so I'm gonna take my phone so I could go show it.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, I'm back. So for mine, I finished it, I hope. I'd say it's finished. Here, let's see if I know how to fix the camera. I don't think I do.
I saw the images that you uploaded at 5:30 in the morning. Was that right?
Here, there it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so blurry. But so it's 2020, and then it's like all pretty askew, and it's all like on this pile of like magazines. So I had to make them all. They're like paper mache piñata style, but I left the paper mache, and then I just made certain keywords like frustrating, and it's like in the shape of things to come. And basically, it's just like a whole thing about media and media consumption. And it's in the backyard because that's kind of like, this is also where I like to read books and stuff. So I think this is where I myself am taking in this media and other topics really often. And then it looks really fragile because I have string to like give it its shape. So that's kind of the whole point, is everything's kind of like hanging by a string. It's actually super stable, but it's supposed to look really fragile, which it does. And then I have certain keywords that I've highlighted. So it's all pretty dusty because it's paper mache, but I used glue to make certain parts like shinier. So this just says History Month. This has been kind of an insane month. And then up here it says hardest workers. And then, I mean, there's stuff all over this. Oh, in this issue, health and wellness, stretch your dollars. I think, oh yeah, and then I highlighted some like travel maps and stuff, because even throughout all this, everyone was talking about travel and like what that means for travel. And then the only one I highlighted here is President Trump's coronavirus guidelines for America. Right. I think it's obvious I'm not a huge fan of him. So I have that. And then I think there's one here where it says, oh, there we go. There's the coronavirus. And then this said vote 2020, but I ripped it in half and just left like that. You know what it's supposed to say, but it's not quite complete because I don't think things were fair. And there was something else on here. I think it said future generation, and I put it right under a paper that said controlling. So it's like controlling the future generation, because I feel like a lot of our voting efforts and stuff have been suppressed during this time. But yeah, it's just an homage to like media consumption in your own backyard and what that means for the state of the world and things to come. So I think it's done.
Okay, so since yours is the most complete, and we haven't done this yet, but could I hear some comments from the rest of you? So Parker's saying it's epic. Could you guys go ahead and chime in there a little bit?
Yeah, I really like it. I really like how like there's so much detail. There's a lot of I guess like messages behind it.
Thanks, my dude.
Yeah, you can tell you put in like a lot of hard work, like finding individual clippings to put in certain places, and like you really thought about it as a whole instead of like individual numbers. I think it looks really good.
Yay.
I like the fact that it's kind of unbalanced and the strings kind of holding it together. Like you said, it looks really unstable. And how like the second zero is like super, like it's like sideways. So it's kind of showing just how kind of screwed up 2020 is so far.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like an homage. So it was supposed to be really pretty and floral and like for all the graduating class. And then I did not feel that anymore. Once I started the paper mache, I was like, no, this is a disaster. So I just did that instead.
Okay. I think that I would agree with all of the comments. I agree it is epic. I agree that 2020 is not turning out the way that we started it. And the fragility of it holding together is definitely something that causes a lot of anxiety and stress for all of us. I think you have some really strong points with this. I want to mention a couple of little things here, and that is it almost seems like there's there's several little themes that are kind of woven together. I think originally you started out a little bit with the consumerism, mass communication, right?
I feel that it kind of just went to the direction where it's kind of like, what's the buzz in media like right now? Because we see a lot of repetition. So I thought it was like kind of a lot about like what's everything that's happening right now in the media, what are we consuming the most, and I didn't highlight any like the Vogue magazine stuff and like all the stuff I used to make it. I only highlighted things that I thought were like the most important thing you see in the news. So the rest is kind of like background noise.
Good, good. Okay, so, and it looked also like what was on the base was the more consumerism, popular consumerism stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, so I wanted it to kind of be coming out of that so you can tell like where these ideas are from, like where do you find them? And it's like in our everyday media. I don't really have that many other magazines laying around that would be more pertinent. So it's just a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the idea where like it doesn't look very stable. It's not supposed to look very stable. And that's why I covered up the thing that's actually like giving it all the structure. Because I wanted it to look like really messy and it's kind of springing out of these pages. And then this is like kind of what's sticking with us.
Okay, very good. So that kind of, the way you described it, there's exactly what I was thinking is maybe emphasize that a little bit more so that the base might look like an open book. So it's a big giant open book or magazine or something like that. I mean, it could be.
Yeah. It wasn't a good structure and it like got destroyed. Like I actually did that and it didn't work out at all.
Oh, well, I'm saying you might still be able to do that, keeping what you have currently, but the visual part that we see, excuse me, are these open folded big giant pages, I guess, so that it does look like that's springing forth the way you described it. So that would, I mean, that's just one little thought there. Overall, this is quite nice. It's a good one. Go ahead.
I wanted it to look kind of like I wanted it to appear overwhelming because that's what it is. So I specifically, like the magazines I put at the bottom, I put a lot and then I took all the pages and I shredded them so that nothing really goes together. So you don't see one whole page at any point. You only see like shreds of different pages.
Yeah.
Because I see that like this like media storm of like that we're taking in, and it's just so much because it is really overwhelming to listen to the news and it's really overwhelming to look at any kind of like social media at this time. So it's kind of like the vibe I wanted with the base. So I specifically took pages and shredded them so that they looked more kind of like a mess, I guess. I didn't want everything to be coherent at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that the other comment is the 2020. We see they are turned slightly as they stack, and I like that you turned one of the zeros sideways. But you could actually, instead of them all facing this way, some of them might actually turn, you know, even more as they pivot on their stack. Because right now we still primarily see 2020 from one view, and then when we look at the end, primarily it's the end.
Yeah, that's why it was harder to try to do that as far as like stability goes. Mm-hmm. So I did kind of attempt it and I didn't like it that much, but that's why I put one of my twos backwards, and then I did walk around it to see what was showing on the sides. And because like they're curved numbers, it does have like a nice detail on the sides because you see like the curve of the 2 and the 0. And then if you go behind it, I purposefully made one of the twos backwards that has like one of the biggest things talking specifically about Trump and the coronavirus. So I made sure that was backwards too, so that now it's like the main 2 when you walk around it.
Yeah, and I can see that. And so I'm not at all suggesting that you weren't looking at it from all angles, because you were. But this other, since they are numbers, and you did play with this to a degree by turning one of the 2s backwards, but primarily from one side we can read it, and from the ends, even though form-wise it is interesting from all angles form-wise, But the fact that they're numbers, and same would be true of letters, that we can read it, that adds a level that isn't there from the ends. And so it's just something else to think about here. You know, so if we were really technically trying to hit all the aspects of the sculptural idea being interesting all the way around, then we would have to add this idea of readability. And so we would say it has to be equally readable or unreadable from all sides. That would be the other thing we would put on here. Now, so when I'm saying those kinds of things, I'm trying to be kind of picky with that. I'm trying to, as we critique, it's not a criticism that, oh my God, this isn't successful because you didn't do that. That's not what I'm saying. It's just another way of analyzing what's going on. Okay? Overall, this is a very good piece. Let's see. So I want to come back here just before and make sure that that everybody has a good direction as you finish up. So I want to come back to you, Jason. Do you have a good thought of how you want to go forward?
I mean, from earlier, like nothing much has changed. Like yeah, it's just the same as earlier. Like I'm gonna just keep working on it and then see if anything changes.
Okay. So I know we're all under, again, a lot of stress to finish all of your classes and just kind of carry on here. So when I say what I'm about to say, don't let that add to it too much. I'd like to see some images as how you're going forward by Wednesday.
Okay.
And so I kind of don't think you'll be done by Wednesday, but I think that should be a goal for you to have some physical thing going on here, because otherwise it might drag on and then it will add to the anxiety because you'll be trying to finish that as well as your final project, as well as all of your other assignments and other classes. So try, okay.
Okay.
Let's see, Stephen, you've got good direction, right?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Brianna?
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good?
Yes.
Okay. Parker, you're good, right? Okay. And Clarissa, you're good. All righty. Then, is there anything else that you want to ask me about or you'd like me to comment on? Yes, Stephen?
So I remember you mentioned that you're going to introduce the next project on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
should I plan on attending Wednesday's lecture?
I think that would be a smart thing to do if you can. I will begin talking about it then. No doubt I'll repeat myself somewhat on Monday. But what helps me in doing this, because like you, I've never done it I'm teaching sculpture online. So this is all brand new territory. So however I begin it on Wednesday, from the comments, it'll help me to know what to refine and say in a different way or something by next week. So, or a week from today. So if you can attend on Wednesday, yes. If you can't, then that's fine too. It's an optional attendance, but I will begin talking about the assignment on Wednesday.
Okay, and I noticed that you're recording today's lecture, so could
Yes.
you record Wednesday's lecture as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I just plain forget. I start talking, you guys start joining and I begin talking to you and I forget to hit the record button. Today I actually remembered. So we'll have everything today and it'll be on the announcement pages of our page, of our class.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, then have a good rest of your day and upload images for me. Think about the site where you take those pictures. And I will see you either on Wednesday or next week. Okay? All right. Take care.